On August 23rd, 1305 AD, Scottish knight, commander, and former guardian of the Kingdom of Scotland, William Wallace, was drawn and quartered after he was tried and convicted of high treason. He was 35 years old. He joined the First Scottish War of Independence in May of 1297, along with Andrew Murray, under the leadership of Robert the Bruce. Their foe was the King of England, Edward I, who sought to punish the Scots for signing a peace treaty with France. Edward used this as justification to bring the Kingdom of Scotland under English rule. At the start of the war, Wallace, along with Murray and his men, led small rebellions throughout Scotland clandestinely, due to many of the Scottish nobles initially siding with England. On September 11, 1297, the outnumbered Scottish rebels defeated the English at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. The Scots took advantage of the situation by attacking the English forces while they were marching across the bridge. It collapsed when the soldiers tried to retreat, giving the Scots a huge victory. It is unknown how many of the Scots were killed or wounded in the battle, but the English lost over 5,000 foot soldiers and 100 cavalrymen. But Andrew Murray was severely wounded in the battle and would die from his wounds a few months later. King Edward, upon hearing the news, was furious and routed up a large army of over 15,000 soldiers and planned on personally leading an invasion into Scotland to avenge the English defeat at Stirling Bridge and to crush the Scottish rebellion. Before dealing with the Scots, he signed a truce with the Kingdom of France on October, which eventually led to a peace treaty with the French King Philip IV in January of 1298. The newly signed treaty purposely excluded the Kingdom of Scotland. From November of 1297 into January of 1298, William Wallace led his Scottish warriors into northern England, raiding and looting the Cumberlands, and reaching as far as the city of Durham before retreating back into Scotland with their loot. For his victories against England, Wallace was awarded the title Guardian of Scotland and knighted by a Scottish noble on the behalf of the imprisoned Scottish king, John, on March of 1298. After several months of planning, King Edward and William Wallace met on the battlefield on July 22, 1298, near the city of Falkirk. The battle was a mismatched affair. Without Andrew Murray's strategic skills, the Scottish rebels were crushed due to William Wallace's lack of knowledge in fighting open field combat. Wallace gave up his title as Guardian of Scotland, and for the next several years he was constantly on the move due to being labeled a fugitive by the King of England. He spent the next few years wandering around Europe trying to drum up support for Scotland and spent most of his time in France. On August 5, 1305, William Wallace was arrested by English soldiers after being turned in by a Scottish knight loyal to England, John de Menteith. Wallace was quickly transported to London and put on trial for high treason and committed atrocities against civilians in war due to his raids in northern England after the Battle of Stirling Bridge. After the trial, he was found guilty and sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. Wallace was then crowned with a garland of oak to suggest that he was king of the outlaws. He said of the charges, "I could not be a traitor to Edward, for I was never his subject." On August 23, 1305, he was taken from the Tower of London, stripped bare naked, and dragged around town by the heels of a horse. After the preliminaries were finished, he was hanged, but revived after nearly strangling to death. Then he was slowly emasculated and then disemboweled right before his own eyes, watching the torturer burn his own guts. And right before he died from shock, Wallace was beheaded and cut into 4 large sections. After a short break, Wallace's head was dipped into tar and placed upon a spike on top of the London Bridge. The rest of his body was displayed publicly throughout northern England and Scotland as a warning to those who even think about rebelling against England and King Edward I.